Oh, I mean, I had the death threat which the police had to investigate, and immediately after the referendum, I kept a record of just the vile emails, just for 6 weeks. And that was after, and that was 7 folders.
Are you
ring
serious?
binders. Yeah, that was just email.
But just because you basically voted leave, that was it?
Yeah, but what that means is it comes back to what I think Dominic said. Because people are still unclear about some of the precise things, some people would like to stop Brexit, others just want to knock it into proper shape, and therefore...
What do you think Dominic wants to do?
I have worked with Dominic on the Intelligence Security Committee, and at core, Dominic is a good lawyer, and he doesn't want to see a bill that doesn't do the job. Mm. And I think real crashing out would be people stopping the bill from happening.
So you respect him, actually?
I do.
Notwithstanding the fact you disagree, you respect what he's actually doing?
I respect professionals who know and do their job. That's the purpose of Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition, by the way. It's also about what is happening around there, the whole periphery. There are still some people who think you can stop it. There's some people who want to kind of undermine the whole mood. And I think that what plays into Parliament.
Gisela, is it true, do you think, that... My sense is that very, very few people outside of probably the hardcore campaigners actually understood the real complexity of what we were doing when we voted in the referendum. It's not to denigrate people, it's not to call them stupid, it's not to do anything. It's just to say, I don't think anybody really got it. They got the big picture, we're in or we're out. They didn't have any idea quite what that meant or how we were going to get there. Is that fair?
Not quite, and it's not quite fair because I think the parameters of what having left would mean, and that would be my test on anything that's voted on in Parliament. Leaving means that the supremacy of the European Court of Justice comes to an end. Leaving means the automaticity of paying into the EU budget. Therefore, we can negotiate about our legal obligations.
Go slower, and let me see if Dominic agrees with you point by point. On those 2 points, do you agree?
I certainly agree that will be one of the consequences.
So European Court sovereignty, that would go, right?
Yeah. Although it's right to say that the influence of the European Court of Justice, if we're continuing trading with the EU, is going to remain.
Might still have an impact, right?
But you wouldn't have.
But essentially, we come under our own rule in terms of most.
Well, we would make up our own mind whether we wanted to follow the ECJ judgment, whereas at the moment the ECJ judgment has direct effect.
Right. So we'd have a choice, basically. We're basically buying ourselves a choice. So on those 2 points, you would agree so far.
Yeah,
Keep going.
And the third one
it's really interesting.
And the third one is that you leave the single market because part of being the single market involves
and the customs union,
freedom of movement of labour. Yes, and the customs
Dominic,
union.
do you think that everybody understood that?
Well, I'm not sure everybody did understand that because there was a certain woolliness over the question as to whether we were leaving the single market and the customs union. Some of the main Leave campaigners, shortly before the referendum, were talking about we want to leave into a Norway relationship, and they then changed their position. Daniel Hannan did, I can think, or Owen Paterson did. You can see the papers they published in the run-up to the referendum.
That is true,
which put forward
there was not
picture.
a consistency about what would happen
all I can
on
say
either side, actually.
As having been the chair of the official campaign, which was Vote Leave, the 3 pillars were take control back of your taxes, your borders and your laws. And single market fell in the borders because you cannot take back control over your borders and actually have a full immigration policy without that.
Come May next, 1919, right? When we've done, and all this argument actually ceases to be that interesting because then it becomes a reality rather than prediction. Do you not think that, for example, on border control, there might be very little difference between what we've been seeing and what we will then see once we've Brexited? In other words, the reality of border control, which to me was the fundamental #1 reason Leave won, might actually not change at all.
And it's quite interesting because...
Do you agree with me?
Hold on.
Well, answer the question. So yes or no, Gisela?
Give me a chance,
you no longer have to obfuscate. You can just give me a straight answer.
I now chair something called Change Britain, and we did focus groups in Leave constituencies and Remain constituencies. And we talked about what immigration policy they thought would be the right. And it's quite interesting that both sides end up with a kind of Australian-style point system, which we already have for about half of our immigration. What will be different is that the entire immigration policy will be in the hands of the elected parliament.